Hi everyone, my name is Jemima Saunders and I teach Year 5 in a little Catholic primary school in Dianella called Our Lady's Assumption. I'm going to be talking to you today about some tips that you may or may not have thought of if you're considering creating or upgrading your class website. So let's get started. This is the homepage for my classroom website. You'll notice it's colourful, it's inviting, because I guess one of the things you want is for people to have an explore and to actually spend time on your website. Considering the amount of time you're probably going to put into it, you want people to feel welcome. I've also included a few links to some social media, particularly Twitter. I think is important for connections and social networking. And also there's a menu up the top, you'll notice, just so that navigating the homepage is easy. But we'll talk about some design elements a little bit later. One of the most important things, if I can give you any tip at all, is to have the purpose for your website very, very clear in your mind. What is your driving force? What's the real reason you want to set up a website? If it's because your principals told you to, great, but it's probably not going to drive you. And you will be having to consider lots of different aspects throughout the process. So for me, when I first designed mine, my driving force was I wanted to share. I needed to share a lot of information with a lot of people, and I didn't want to send out multiple emails. So that sort of drove my whole process. It was my purpose. So I can't emphasize that point enough. You do need to consider who's going to be looking at it. And if it's on the World Wide Web, it could be a lot of people. You do need to consider also, is it mainly for your students? Is it for your parents? Is it for other teachers? And you do need to identify those because different audiences have different understandings. They have even a different dialogue. So you need to cater to your intended audience. I think one of the things that's very important is that you're honest about how much time you're willing to put into it. I really enjoy technology, as I'm sure many of you do too. So for me, committing a lot of my time is something I look forward to. I enjoy it. If that's not you, then maybe you need to think about whether or not this is a good idea. Some of the skills and the workarounds and the learning that I have done since I've created my own website have been astronomical. Your learning curve will also be astronomical. And sometimes things you want to do, you're going to have to go and find a workaround to do, particularly if you're engaging with Macs, PCs, iPads, and various different devices. Be mindful of intellectual property and digital ownership laws. Any images that I've used that are not my own, I do cite on my website. And as a sign of respect and also legally, you do need to keep that in mind. And of course, you need to have fun and enjoy the whole process. So let's now take a look at a couple of options if you are ready to get started. The two designs that I'm going to be sharing with you today are Weebly and Wix. Many of you will probably have heard of both of these. If you haven't, I guess one of the first things you do need to know is that both of them operate on a templates basis, and both of them also have free with advertisement packages or premium membership styles. So look, if you're a beginner, if this is your very first time at considering or creating a website, I would highly recommend Weebly. It is probably one of the most simple and fast ways to get your content out there. I've seen it used in a variety of different ways. I've created one or two websites myself. And I do find that for someone who wants to put their information out there in a really professional looking way, Weebly can cater to you. So it's fantastic for beginners. Wix is a little bit more complicated because there are a lot more available options for tailoring the website to your particular needs. It is the one that I've used for my website because I like to control certain elements that Weebly didn't allow me to. You will need to have a little bit more technological expertise, and you do need to prepare to invest your time in whichever one you decide to go with. For a little bit more of a detailed exploration of Weebly and Wix, there's a fantastic article by Jeremy Wong, and he talks about 8 different points of comparison, in particular the popularity, the template design, the drag and drop, tools, support, exporting features, the advertisements, and the big one, pricing. So, what sorts of things could be included on a class-based website? And I guess this sort of harks back to my initial point about what is your purpose. So some of the things that you may or may not have considered are a photo gallery. Photo galleries are fantastic. You do need to check with the information that's allowed to be portrayed on a website according to your principal or according to your sector or system. You do also have the opportunity of password protecting some pages, particularly with faces of children, or maybe not having any identifying information. Communication, it's a big one. What an easy way to communicate with your parent body, or a fantastic way to communicate with a wide variety of people, including other teachers, other schools, different classrooms, all sorts of different things. Web links, probably one of the most major uses of a website is being able to share and connect content that you specifically tailor. Just make sure that your web links are valid. I think sometimes, it's nothing more frustrating than visiting a website, clicking on a link you really want to go to, and it doesn't actually get there. So just make sure and double check that you've done all of those correctly. Homework is one of the things that's being revamped, I guess, across lots of sectors, but for me at the moment, I actually provide my homework tasks on a password protected page, so only the children in my class can access it. And it's a great way. Paperless environments are obviously being encouraged more and more. It's a great way to connect with the children, and we also do it via Edmodo. Students Showcase, the majority of what you'll see on my website in a moment probably harks back to showing you the student work and the actual content of what we're doing. And I think that's a really nice way also to show parents, but also to communicate with other colleagues, ideas, techniques for your content from your classroom. And the last one, and probably one of the most fun, is a blog. And with a blog, you can either have a kid blog, using EduBlogs or Kid Blog, or you can have your own personal blog, as is the case on my website. And I think that's a really nice way to have a voice. Okay, so the fun part, some designing tips. You do need to think about your navigation. Most websites have a sort of general rule. If you can't get where you need to go in 3 clicks or less, it's too complicated. So one of the easiest ways to do that is to have a menu or even drop-down menus. I said before, you do need to consider any information or images that are sensitive, and some websites will allow you to password protect certain information. I'm not 100% sure about whether Weebly does this, but I know obviously that Wix does, because that's what I use for my website. So just keep that in mind, particularly when we are talking about children. Minimize design elements. I think that means just because it can move or because it can animate doesn't mean that it needs to. So you do need to consider whether or not what you're doing is just entertaining or whether it is distracting. I've said before, you need to check your links. That's really important, but do also include them. It's highly important. Embedding content, such as what you can see on that top slide there of the listening gallery from SoundCloud, is one of the coolest features of any website, because you're not just showing images, you're then interacting on a more media savvy level. So some of the content that I put into my Dropbox folder automatically updates on my website, as you can see in the homework tasks slide just there. I've also got the kids' iMovies, I've got galleries, I've got slideshows, all sorts of different recordings, and it really does make your website interactive and come alive. And the last thing, you will need to share your website, so be brave, and you will need to continuously edit it. You'll need to review it because things won't work and things will go wrong, and this process is ongoing. It's fantastically fun, but it is ongoing. So you are never really finished. You might think, okay, great, I'm ready to publish, but you will have to review, you will have to continually edit. Otherwise, there's no point people coming back to the website. They'll come once and they won't have a reason to return. So That's sort of talking about your time commitment as well. Okay, so hopefully Bhavneet or Gabrielle have brought in some little cards from me. On the back there's a QR code, and that QR code, if you scan it with your iPad or your smartphone with your QR reader, it should take you to my website. So I'd love it if you could all maybe take one and have a look. The address is on the front of the cards and also on this slide if you're not sure. Just one of the things you might want to keep in mind is that your website will look different and move differently on different devices. And you might need to have a look at your mobile editor, because sometimes what can look fantastic on your widescreen computer at home is a big jumbled mess on a mobile device. So you do need to consider minimalistic design. And that's it. So I'm so sorry I couldn't be there today. Thank you to everybody who's taken the time to come in and to come and listen to my presentation. I've left my Twitter handle up on the screen for you, just in case you wanted to ask me a question. And I'd love to see maybe some links on Twitter to some fabulous new class websites. Thanks everybody. Have a great day.